Okay, so we're making gluten-free pizza dough, somewhat New York style, so a crisp, chewy crust. And the problem with gluten-free pizza dough in general is without the gluten, you don't have the structure in the dough that gives you that nice extensibility, that ability to stretch it nice and thin. And without the wheat, you don't have that wheat flavor. So there's a couple of things in this recipe that help out with that. The first is this flour blend from Caputo. So Caputo is an Italian flour company. Their 000 pizza flour is used in many pizza shops all over the world, and they produce this gluten-free product which actually uses deglutenized wheat starch. So it's safe for people with celiac because it's gluten-free down to less than 20 parts per million, but it would not be safe for someone with a wheat allergy because it does have wheat in it. But the advantage of this blend is it has that taste of wheat. The second ingredient is psyllium husk, which is going to get mixed with water. And psyllium husk is a plant fiber, and it absorbs a ton of water and forms like a gel, which when you add it to the dough, it gives it some of that stretchiness that is characteristic of a dough made with wheat flour. So what we have here for ingredients are 30 grams of psyllium husk and 300 grams of water. You're always going to use about at least 10 times as much water as psyllium husk, and we'll see how that absorbs. I've got 667 grams of the gluten-free flour blend. I've got 8 grams of instant yeast. I've got 12 grams of sugar, and I've got 20 grams of kosher salt, and I've got 533 grams of water. So what we're gonna do is just, first thing is to make the psyllium gel. All right, so I'm gonna add the water to the psyllium husk. And then I'm gonna mix it. It usually takes about 30 seconds. You want kind of like a thick, almost like applesauce-like consistency, a little bit thicker. You can see how it's starting to get perfect. Now, I'm gonna take my flour, and to the flour, I'm gonna add the salt, the sugar, and the yeast. And I'm just gonna blend that up. Mix it up. Now to that, I'm gonna add the water, so 533 grams of water. And I'm also gonna add the psyllium gel. So now I'm just gonna add one last ingredient to this, which is 35 grams of extra virgin olive oil. I'm gonna weigh that out. Perfect. All right, now I'm just gonna mix this up as best I can. My rubber spatula. And then the rest of the mixing I'm gonna do with the mixer. Now this isn't gonna set up like a regular dough. It's gonna be more kind of like a batter almost. So you're not really gonna be able to knead it very easily with your hands. But if you needed to, what you would do is just keep mixing it. You really just wanna incorporate all the dry flour into the mix as best you can. All right, so now I'm gonna finish this in the mixer. So I'm gonna use the paddle attachment. We're gonna mix this on medium speed for about 2 minutes. All right, so this has been going for about 2 minutes. You can see the consistency of the dough. All right, so I'm just gonna take this off. Scrape the dough off of the paddle. You can see the consistency of the dough is very, very loose, very sticky. You would not want to be trying to knead this with your hands. It'd be extremely frustrating. Wouldn't work probably at all. And so the thing is, since there's no gluten in this, we're not trying to develop the gluten. So there is really no kneading process. It's really just, you have to make sure everything is mixed well and everything is incorporated together. The next step of this is going to be, this dough is going to rise for about an hour. And so what I've got is a cup of water in the microwave, which I'm just heating up for 2 minutes. And that's where I'm going to proof my dough, let it rise in there. It's going to be a nice warm spot. Scrape down the sides. I've got a little bit of millet flour. I'm just going to this on the counter. A little more on top. Plastic here. And all I really want to do is round this into shape before I dump it in this bowl. Go in here, this bowl is going to be sprayed with some spray oil. See how sticky that is? There we go, there's our dough. All right, so I'm just gonna put a piece of plastic wrap across the top of this. This is going to go into the microwave for 1 hour. Should be about doubled in size. Water in here. Okay, so it's been an hour. Let's see. Oh yeah. Let's see that the dough is definitely risen. Looks to be about double. So now I got some millet flour out here. Dump that out. This recipe with the amounts I've used is going to be enough to make about 3 what would be large, small, or small, medium pizzas. Probably about 12, 13 inches. So I just want to weigh my dough. Again, it's still pretty sticky, but you want to avoid adding too much more flour. Scale 1,580 divided by 3 is roughly 526. 594. It's not going to matter if you're not so exact. There's 1. Got 3 pieces. All we're going to do now is kind of round them off into a round, like tucking under like that. Put it on a greased, oiled tray, so spray oil on the tray. 1. If you don't have a dough scraper, get one. Very useful. 2. And then the last one. 3. Now those are gonna take about 30 minutes to rise. I'm gonna just cover it with a damp cloth, just so they don't dry out. All right, so while that dough is rising, I'm gonna talk oven setup real quick. So what I have here is I have a pizza stone and a steel on top of it. So the stone holds the heat really well. The steel is very conductive, so it gets that nice crispy bottom. If you just have a pizza stone, that's fine. If you don't have either, you can use like a sheet pan, like a metal sheet pan turned upside down, but you want something that's gonna be a very hot surface. So for this dough, the gluten-free pizza dough takes longer to cook. So if I were to top the pizza and just put it in there, the toppings would be done well before the dough was cooked. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna preheat the oven for half an hour while that dough rises to 450. Then I'm gonna stretch and I'm gonna pre-cook the doughs. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes. I actually got a pair of gloves, which makes this a lot easier, but if not, you would wanna put probably some oil on your hands. So I'm gonna take one of our doughs, which is risen now, and you can't really stretch it like you would with a normal wheat dough because it's just gonna kind of break apart. So what I do is I put it on a piece of parchment, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to push out from the middle, trying to maintain a ridge around the outside, which is gonna be your crust. The other good thing about using the gloves is, you know, the dough doesn't really stick to your hands at all. And I'm just gonna keep turning it and pressing it outwards. And you want to be pushing the air that's in there towards the edge. So you're just going to keep stretching this, and you should be able to get it pretty thin. Just keep turning the parchment. See how you can kind of push the bubbles towards the edge. And you want to do that because when you pre-bake this crust, you don't want it to rise up in the middle. You want it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get it as thin as you can get it. So you should be able to push this much dough, at least 13, maybe 14 inches. And you can kind of so it takes longer. I mean, it's definitely a little bit of a slower process than stretching out a regular wheat dough, but it's worth the extra effort. If you get any little holes in there, that's fine. You just kind of patch them over. And again, still pushing the air towards the edge. And then the last thing you want to do is you kind of want to dimple it a little bit. And this is going to also, when you pre-bake that crust, prevent it from rising up in the middle. All right. Transfer this over to my peel. If you didn't have a peel, you could put it on the back of a sheet pan to load it in the oven. This is going to go in a 450-degree oven for 10 minutes. What I'm gonna do is after 4 minutes, I'm gonna just pull the paper out. Alright, so that's been 10 minutes. Looks good. Let that cool. Load the second one into the oven. Alright, so our third dough is done pre-baking. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn the oven off and raise it up to 550, which is the highest my oven goes. And that's the temperature I'm actually gonna bake these pizzas at, because I want really, try to get a really nice crisp crust and get those toppings done as quick as I can, so everything's done at the same time. So while that oven is preheating, let's talk toppings really quick. You don't need anything super fancy, I don't believe. So you can make pizza sauce if you want. We prefer just plain crushed tomatoes, so any good quality crushed tomato. San Marzano tomatoes are delicious on pizza. I've been using this Bianco di Napoli. This is a product from California, really, really good. So I don't even do anything except just the plain crushed tomatoes. Some good grated Romano cheese or Parmesan cheese, really important. And let's talk about mozzarella. If you go through all this effort to make the dough, stretch it out, pre-cook it, do all this stuff, do not use pre-shredded mozzarella cheese. It has usually cornstarch or something on it that keeps it from sticking together in the bag, and it won't melt right. And you also want whole milk, and you want it to be low moisture, and that makes it better for the pizza. And you do not want part skim or any of that stuff. Don't skimp on this. So get your grater, get your pound of cheese, and grate it yourself. If you don't want to grate it, you can slice it really thin. It kind of works the same way. The other toppings I have some pepperoni, and I have some broccoli that I sauteed with some minced garlic in olive oil with a little bit of salt. All right, so I'm almost down to the end here. A little bit left. My oven's almost up to 550. So that took about 2 extra minutes, and it's gonna make a huge difference. And the thing with pizza is every one of these little things adds up. The whole is more than the sum of the parts, and you get a much better product if you don't cut corners in these little things. So something like a better quality mozzarella and good quality tomatoes on top, it makes a big difference. You're already doing all this work anyway, so why stop there? So now there's just one last thing. We're almost ready to actually bake the pizzas. So the oven came up to 550. I'm gonna do one last thing. I'm gonna actually turn the oven off, and I'm gonna turn the broiler on high for 5 minutes. And the purpose of that is what it's gonna do is it's gonna superheat that steel at the top and really get that surface hot. And when it's gone for 5 minutes, I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna bring the oven back up to 550, and then I'm gonna be ready to bake my first pizza. All right, so the oven is almost up to temperature, and let's build our first pizza. So this is just gonna be a plain mozzarella. So I've got my sauce, and I kind of believe in kind of a less is more philosophy with pizza, because I don't like, first of all, you don't want the crust to get soggy. And one of the ways the crust will get soggy at this point is if you put too much sauce on here. And so you really want the right balance of ingredients on the top. So you really just need enough sauce on here, and that's plenty. You don't want to cover it completely. You should see the dough a little bit through there. That looks pretty good. Now, one thing with the gluten-free doughs is because they're not made from wheat and they don't have the same types of starch and sugars in the crust, it doesn't brown the same way. So one of the ways around that is to brush the crust with a little bit of olive oil before you start. So I'm just gonna hit it with a little olive oil around the edge, like so. Probably should have done this before I put the sauce on there. That would have made things a little easier. It doesn't really matter. You just kind of lightly brush it all around the edge. All right, get that on my peel. I'm gonna give it a little bit of grated cheese. This will give it that nice, sharp, salty flavor. I'm gonna just hit that with a little mozzarella. Again, less is more. You don't have to completely cover it. You should see the sauce through there. You're thinking like maybe about 4 to 5 ounces of cheese. You don't want too much
I mean, you do whatever you want, of course, but this is my preference. Another sprinkle of cheese, a little drizzle of olive oil. We're ready to go in the oven. So this is gonna bake now at 550. It's gonna take 6 minutes. So I'm gonna do 3 minutes. And then I'm gonna turn it, and then it'll be done. This one's gonna be a white pie. No, not a lot of sauce, so I'm gonna brush this with olive oil. A little extra flavor. To drizzle just a little bit of sauce. Not a lot. Just to give it a little bit of color, slightest bit of flavor. A little bit more. Perfect. This one is not gonna get any more sauce than that. And then we're gonna top this with some mozzarella and then that sauteed broccoli with the garlic and oil. Timer's about to ring. Turn that other pizza around. Three more minutes. Should be good. And then when one comes out, I will just turn that broiler on again for 3 minutes before I load this second pizza, just to heat up that steel again. All right. That looks good. That broiler on. This one. A little more cheese. It's actually probably a little more mozzarella than I even normally would like to have on there, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Now, get this one ready. You just always want your peel to be dry. You don't want anything to stick when you go to slide it in the oven. One of the advantages of pre-baking these crusts part of the way is you can get them in the oven much easier than when you're making a regular dough that's not cooked yet. So like you'd never be able to do that with an uncooked dough. This with a little bit of oil. A little more grated cheese. All right, so sit for about 2 minutes and to cut this up. I like these wheel cutters, works pretty well. And I hear the oven, so that's ready to put the other pizza in. All right, throw this other one in the oven. Good to go. All right, so I got one piece here. Let's take a look. You notice you got that nice open crumb. Good structure, doesn't sag too much. You can't really get that beautiful brown bottom that you get with wheat, but pretty good. But you are able to do the fold here. It's the way I like to eat my pizza. Very good. You got the flavor of wheat. You got the good chew. I mean, honestly,
unless you really know your doughs very, very well, you might not know that this was gluten-free pizza. You know, it's really much better than anything that I ever thought I was gonna make when I started this process, that's for sure.
Let's see. Looks good. So there's our broccoli pizza. A little more cheese. All right, one more to make. And the broccoli, same deal. Nice. All right, that's the last one. So there you go, 3 pizzas. So originally, my goal when I was diagnosed with celiac was to come up with a decent pizza recipe. I tried a whole bunch of different ones. I've tested a whole bunch of different flours, and you know, I really don't think that there's much further to go with this recipe. You know, you get that good wheat taste from the flour with the wheat starch, which has been deglutenized. You get that good extensibility and that chew from the psyllium husk. You know, it's really a really excellent dough. You know, I would suggest following this process as far as cooking exactly. So the 10 minutes of pre-cooking that crust at 450 plus 6 minutes at 550. So 16 minutes total time on that crust, which is a lot longer than it would take a similar size wheat dough to cook. But you know, that's definitely one of the keys to this recipe. So give it a try. I think you'll be very pleased with the results if you're used to eating cauliflower crust or any of these crispy cracker-like gluten-free doughs that crumble apart and don't give you that real satisfaction of a nice chewy pizza crust.